question of what is Reading FC for has been raised a lot in recent times, but under Jose Gomez the answer appears to be trolling our rivals. With a 3-2 home win to Wigan, the latest late show that fell in the Royals' favour. Welcome to episode 188 of the Tilehurst End podcast with your host Marc Mayo as per usual, and well, points mean prizes this week, and to discuss how, well, let's say that the points are definitely the only thing that matters, or certainly the biggest thing that matters. With me this evening is Olly. How's it going, mate?
I'm still in disbelief, really, I think, to be honest, from those final few minutes the weekend. But other than that, yeah, very well, thanks, Marc.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a bit one of those games that you look back on and think, how will the history books remember this? And I think we'll get into it in a little bit more detail in the recap, but it's going to be hopefully defined as a game that really the second game, you can put it as the second game that put us towards safety and hopefully building something bigger. So we'll get into that in the recap. A bit of a truncated show this week because there's no news bites or pub chat. Then we'll have Mailbag and preview the Leeds game. So let's crack on then and talk about the Wigan win.
The view from the Tilehurst End, recapping all this week's action.
Right then, 3-2 to Reading, Barrow and Yakou Meite scoring in the 89th and 97th minute respectively. This is a very interesting game to discuss because as a fan podcast, I kind of find myself torn in the middle between the kind of perhaps cynical journalistic mentality of the performance wasn't so great, but also the fan side of things and saying we got the win in the most dramatic, the most emotional of circumstances. And let's start on the good stuff then, Ollie, because for me, what this showed and what the Ipswich game has perhaps showed as well is that a strong mentality is probably coming back, and that's something that we've bemoaned the team for ages for their lack of mental strength, and we were moaning about it 2 weeks ago. We were moaning about it for the Ipswich game, really, and you can probably say the same for Wigan. But the fact that we've won these two games, does that for you show that there is a mentality coming back into the team that is successful?
Yeah, for sure. I think there was a very good Stats Corner article we had last week from Tom, sort of saying how we never really scored many late goals under Paul Clement. But certainly under Jose Gomez now, we scored a late goal last week against Ipswich, got the late goal against Blackburn as well a few weeks ago to win that. So I think, yeah, you can certainly tell that this team are now fighting until the very end of games. I think especially what for me was the biggest thing from the weekend was coming from behind to win. Obviously, we haven't done that for nearly 2 years. I think it was Rotherham at home in the playoff season was the last time we'd come from behind, to win a game. So certainly when that first Wigan goal goes in, even when they make it 2-1, you don't really give Reading much hope based on the last 2 years. But I think credit to them, they showed great spirit. I think you could tell from their celebrations at the end, not just in the in the crowd, which was obviously great, but on the sidelines as well. Gomez got booked for going down a touchline, but I'm sure he won't care about that. But yeah, you could see how much it meant to those players. And you could see that they were fighting for, right to the very, very end, and obviously back-to-back wins as well, for the first time in probably about 18 months now. So I think you can see a tide perhaps changing or turning rather, under Gomez. And obviously we're far from safe yet, but certainly, these last two games, especially coming against relegation rivals, showed that there is fight in this team, I think.
Yeah, well, you say about the sort of relegation picture at the moment. Reading are 3 points clear, 19th at the moment. They're heady heights of 19th, and as I say, 3 points, and the goal difference is quite in our favour. So we are actually a game clear of the relegation zone at the moment. And if you think of if the Ipswich game would have finished 1-1 or Wigan would have beaten us, then we would still be in the relegation zone, looking at a 3 point gap with dodgy goal difference to get out of it. So it is a huge difference that these sort of 3 late goals have made, and it's come as well in a period of massive injuries, which I think is probably one of the most staggering things at the moment. We had 2 kids who had never made their debut on the bench, Ryan East and Michael Olise, and obviously Danny Loader, and then we had kind of a few defenders and sort of filled it out as much as we could. And the injuries, do you think that's in a way, I think that they've probably helped us, because obviously, the 1 or 2 players are playing that perhaps wouldn't be playing, and, someone like Rinamosa would be playing at the moment, but it's forced Gomez to kind of work with what he's got. It's forced him to say, you know what, yeah, Oliveira's injured, Meite has to start up front, that's how it's going to be. And too much, I think, with the large squad that we've had it so many times where, a winger's injured, and then it's like, do we bring in McCleary or Luco? Oh, put McCleary in. Oh, he didn't play so well for a game. We'll put a Luco in for a game. And that chopping and changing hasn't helped us. And one of the things that Gomez, with that slight help of injuries, has had is just a sort of small unit to build around, and he's done a good job out of that.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree. I mean, on the weekend preview, me and Tom always sort of try and predict the lineup or give the lineup the weekend. I think probably the weekend was probably the first time we got it right all season, because it was a predictable lineup in the sense that was really all that Gomez could do. Obviously, the only change he made from the Ipswich game was the enforced one, with Oliveira going out and Barrow coming in. But yeah, I think you know what you're getting with this Reading team now, and I think especially in this relegation battle, it's good to have a settled side that knows each other, knows each other's strengths, knows each other's weaknesses. I think, you're exactly right about earlier in the season where we were chopping and changing every week. I think we very, very rarely did we go unchanged during a game. I think, we made 4 or 5 changes per week. So, and I think especially in the back line as well, that massively hindered us earlier in the season. We were changing centre-backs every week. Obviously, part of that was down to injury. We were changing goalkeeper every 2 or 3 games, but especially in that back line now as well, I think you've got that settled team in the midfield. Baker, Ajaria, and Swift seem to have formed quite a good central 3. And obviously, Ajaria came off injured the weekend, but those 3 sort of seem to have formed quite a good relationship in the middle there. And I think in general, if you can keep that team as together, I think because that's ultimately what builds that spirit we were talking about. If you're playing different players each week, then they're never going to get that bond all together. And I think certainly having a much tighter squad now, allows that spirit to build, perhaps.
Well, you're saying Ajaria there. He came off injured. There were doubts that he'll make the Leeds game and the Stoke game beyond that. And Liam Moore as well seems to have done a shoulder injury, done a shoulder injury, terrible grammar, but had a shoulder injury inflicted upon him, which may keep him out as well. But he kept on going, and I don't know what to read too much into the Moore thing, because part of me thinks is, if you've got a shoulder injury and you're the centre back, leader, captain, etc., it makes sense to stay on. But he got a lot of praise for staying on, and perhaps even though it is the obvious thing to do, the natural thing you'd expect, it is good to see that every so often, just to remind you. And I think that perhaps the other players on the pitch take that as a sense of, sometimes we are going to concede goals, sometimes it is going to hurt, but ultimately if we sort of believe in all those sort of buzzwords, then it will pay off. So I think Liam Moore probably did himself a lot of favours in doing that, in terms of the fans, and had a big impact on the dressing room as well.
Yeah, that's, as I said, that's why he's captain. He leads by example. He's desperate to play. I think he wants to help the team out in any way he can. He did an interview with the programme, or with the official club programme, at the weekend, and said how he sort of was playing injured for a few games earlier in the season as well. And I think what's very clear from Liam Moore is that he's very, very dedicated to the cause. He's been a fantastic standing captain. When Paul McShane's been out, and you can see it on the pitch. He's that man who rallies the troops before the start of the game. You saw after the Ipswich game last week, the scenes at full time, his passion coming through. It was very much the same again this week. And I think he's the sort of character you need in that squad, because realistically, there's not actually too many of those characters in the side at the moment. Obviously, you've got Paul McShane and John O'Shea, but they're not really playing much. So in terms of the starting 11, he's sort of one of the few players, who you really believe can sort of galvanise the team.
Well, as I say, we are going to have to divide this up into the realistic and the optimistic, and perhaps the optimistic side of this recap is going to have to end us. Let's go into what Jose Gomez said after the game, and then we will talk about perhaps the reasons why Wigan were a bit hard done by.
It was a good moment for the club, for the players, for all the environment, for the way that we are showing that together, and the team spirit is that this way we can achieve to the goals that we want. So we know the targets that we want. We are fighting for that. We are working daily to achieve to this target.
I want to throw a stat at you, Olly, is that we had 9 shots, Wigan had 18 shots. 2 of our goals were kind of long range hits. That suggests we're a bit lucky. Discuss.
It's probably a bit harsh to say we were lucky. I mean, I'd probably say we perhaps didn't deserve to win. And I'm sure we'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, I think what was abundantly clear was that we didn't have very much quality, sort of inside the box. I mean, I think by the half an hour mark, we tried Barrow, McCleary, and Meite all up front. And they're all as equally as unsuccessful as each other. So I think it was probably clear that if we were going to try and get some sort of shots on target or try and test the goalkeeper, was that it was going to be from hitting it outside of the box. And obviously Swift's free kick was a fantastic free kick. And to be honest, I think Mo Barrow's goal would certainly be a goal of the season contender. I mean, it probably gets overshadowed because of what happened 9 minutes later, but it was a fantastic hit from Barrow. And yeah, look, whether we were lucky or not, I think I'm always quite sceptical of the luck argument ever since sort of the Stam season, where all the stats seem to suggest that we were relegation material as opposed to playoff material. But I think sometimes you need that these results to go your way. I think it was nice to see us being clinical for once, to be honest with you, because far too often this season we've had loads of shots and not scored at all or not scored enough to win the game. So that was certainly a positive for me, that we were finally taking our chances. And as I say, sometimes you need those games just to swing in your favour and get a bit of luck to keep you up.
Well, it's interesting as well, because when I was at the Star Fans Forum with Jose Gomez a few weeks ago, fans were constantly saying, why aren't our players shooting from distance? We get into good positions, player looks up, sees the goal, he's 20 yards out or something, and he passes the ball out wide, and it eventually goes back to the keeper, or we lose it. So from a fan point of view, I think it's ideal that we're taking shots from range, and it kind of proves the point, doesn't it, that we're scoring them as well. And yeah, that Barrow shot, I think it probably will go down as one of the most underrated Reading goals in history. But it's kind of like Yakou's goal, in that Man City 90+4 when they won the game won the league in the last minute. Just because the equalising goal was a fantastic one, or very, very useful one, but because it wasn't the winner, perhaps it gets forgotten a little bit. Quick word on Emiliano Martinez then, because we saw the good and bad, didn't we? He gave away or for all intents and purposes was the man who gave away the second goal with a throw out that, I don't mind the throw out. It wasn't a short throw out necessarily, but Tyler Blackett just wasn't aware that it was going to happen. Is the big problem I have with it. And then they scored from that, and then made a couple good saves certainly to prevent it being 3-1. Is this something that ultimately you do just kind of have to accept with this level of goalkeeper? We've spoken about the chances that he might have at Arsenal next season as the number 2 and the cup goalkeeper, but at the end of the day in the Championship, I think you probably just have to accept that your goalkeeper's going to make some errors every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I'm too concerned about. I mean, I think throughout the whole game he was perhaps quite encouragingly really trying to distribute the ball quite quickly. He was always looking to try and set us off on the counter attack, and it was just on that one occasion it didn't quite come off. I think Blackett had perhaps gone too far forward maybe. And it went to the Wigan player instead. But yeah, as you say, I mean, those saves at 2-1 down, especially that point blank one to deny Nick Powell was just magnificent, really. I mean, and something we've almost come to expect from him. I mean, the number of fantastic saves that he's made since he's joined has been incredible, really. And I think, to be honest, we could have been 3-1 down or even 4-1 down. So I think certainly without Martinez, we wouldn't have the chance to have come back. And I think for me, he was my man of the match for Reading on the day. And I think at the time of recording, he's winning our player of the match vote as well on the player rating. So I think that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, I did notice, Ollie, that your player ratings did get a bit of attention after the game.
The Baker one especially.
Yeah, well, I think that the 3 players that I've kind of got down, that from the sort of reports and the highlights and stuff that I've noticed that have got down, of McCleary, Baker and Ajari are the ones that I've sort of understood struggle the most. That's not including John Swift, who I just kind of felt really just continued his general form at the moment. And then what I mean by that is that, in a sense, we're Reading tactically outdone. At the end of the day, Wigan aren't a great team. They're a decent enough team to be in the Championship. I think they probably will stay up, but they knew that they just had to be a bit physical with us. Particularly, I think every defender in the country knows that you just have to blow a small gust of wind at John Swift and he'll give you the ball back. And in that, Baker and Ajari were part of that struggling in the physical battle. Is that something that we should have seen coming a bit more? Or is that something we have to accept, that we are at the moment with injuries and with the style of football we want? Sometimes it's not going to go perfectly, and sometimes the players that we have, they're in the Championship for a reason. This is the style we're playing. If it works, I think we probably win the game. But if it doesn't work, then these are the exact criticism, the physical battle, etc., that we'll bring up.
Well, I mean, I think especially without Moita in there, we're very, very vulnerable physically, and I think Wigan had identified that. I think only Forest have got more yellow cards than them in the Championship this season. So, look, I think in terms of Lewis Baker, I think for me, my main issue is with him. I don't really know what his best position is. I think he's not really a holding midfielder, and
I think he's doing a bit of a sort of plan B job at the moment, isn't he? He's definitely not his natural position, is it?
Well, no, I think as well that's also why we're massively missing Moita for a number of reasons, and I think perhaps to his credit, Baker's done all right in there, but I just think for me he didn't provide that back forward enough cover, and I think Wigan did realise that, and I think if you look at the first goal, Baker arguably lost his man. I think it was possibly Garner who poked the ball towards the back post or Powell, or one of those way rounds. But I think, look, that midfield is obviously quite lightweight. Obviously, we lost Bakuna in the transfer window as well. So I think, and that was probably my main. Well, that was probably my only probably concern coming out of January, was that we lost that physicality in the middle of the park, and I think teams are picking up on that. But I think at the same time, I think we were rattled by that. I think especially with these players clattering into them. I think the ref was quite lenient. I think we picked up the first yellow card. I think it was Miazga picked up the first one. I don't think they picked up a yellow card until the second half. So I think, you mentioned Gareth McCleary as well. I think I gave him a 3 in the player ratings. But I think for me, he had a terrible game for me. The worst I've seen him in a while. I mean, I know he's had a bit of a resurgence lately. Obviously, he got the assist for Oliveira's goal last week. I think he got the assist for Ajari against Rotherham as well. But for me, I don't think anything went right for him the weekend. It's been nearly 2 years now since he last scored a goal. So, and I think Callum Harriott was definitely better when he came on out wide as well. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I think not many players had that great a game. I think the average for our player ratings came out as the lowest ever we've given for a victory. So I think that tells you that the performance overall wasn't really that good. But we as we've spoken about, we got that very late goal and perhaps got a bit lucky.
Well, that brings us on to the final point I wanted to discuss in the recap. And is it okay to focus on the result over the performance? Yes, obviously it's okay. But in terms of historically, I think we definitely do always look at the result, don't we? You think the first game that came to mind as I was thinking about this was the 1-1 draw at Leicester that got us promotion back in 2006, and I'm sure if you watched 85 minutes of that game, I don't think we played particularly well, and Leicester weren't a good team and we were a fantastic team. We only got a late goal to draw 1-1 there. But the nature of the goal and the nature of obviously what it meant for us meant that it's one of probably the defining game in Reading's history. So it's funny how these sort of the performance gets put back quite a bit, and that the result. I mean, obviously, if we don't stay up, it won't be looked on favourably, but I think it will probably be, as I say, one of 2 turning points, or a 2-game turning point, as it were, that keeps us in the league. And I suppose historically, I think that I have no problem with that.
I mean, at the end of the day, the table reads on points. It doesn't read on performances. You don't look at a table and it says, well, this team played not very well here, but very well here. But so at the end of the day, we're in a relegation battle, and we need to be picking up as many points as possible. And I think especially this weekend, coming against a relegation rival that we leaped for with the win was just huge. I mean, to be honest with you, I couldn't care less about performances until the end of the season. I think it's maybe in the summer, where you start worrying about how we play, where Wes Gomez tries to develop his style, and as we if we hopefully stay in the league and try and push up the table next season. But I think right now, we've got 10 games, and to be honest with you, we could play terribly in all of them for all I care, and but as long as we get that one goal that gets us the win, that'll do me just fine.
Yeah, certainly at this stage of season. Well, let's crack on then and move on to thinking about some other parts of the game that we've missed that we'll cover now in the mailbag, and then later on we'll discuss the Leeds game on Tuesday night.
Get social with the boys.
Find them on Twitter
at the Tilehurst End
and facebook.com/the Tilehurst End.
So Jack Killick with an email to the tilehurstend@gmail.com kicks us off for the mailbag. He says that, like most people, I did have my doubts about the singing section in the South Stand. However, the atmosphere in there on Saturday is the best I've experienced at the Meite since probably the second leg of the playoff semi-final against Fulham. I am booking a seat in there for Tuesday night, and I hope others do the same. As for the game, it wasn't the prettiest, but so nice to finally come from behind. Looking forward to game on Tuesday against Leeds. And this is the Club 1871 section, which has been I describe it honestly as a topsy-turvy sort of experiment so far. I think it's been, the scenes of it on Saturday were excellent. I heard that it made good noise, and that ultimately it backed the team. And I think Jose Gomez in that staff and swarm made reference to it, and he's sort of aware of it, and the players are aware of it, and want to go certainly at the end of the games want to go and make sure they give it its fair due sort of thing with a nice round of applause. So Club 1871 for the moment, I think it's certainly something that the club have to persist with and keep going with, and ultimately all the things that have been said after the game in terms of building a proper club atmosphere and feeling like we have the club back and all that sort of talk, I think it builds into it, and therefore it certainly has a role to play in it. And yes, there was, people will say there was the offer of free beer in the stand on Saturday. It will be there again on Tuesday, by which I mean you can pay £5 and get a beer, so it'll be a bit more normal. But yeah, I think I agree with Jack that it's something that not everyone understood necessarily and got behind to begin with. But as the season wears on and you have these big home games, I think that's exactly the moment when you realise why you do have it. And the fact that the atmosphere was great for a home game with Wigan, I think you have to give them a hand for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming at a very difficult time. It's probably coming at the worst possible time, really. I mean, I'm sure if it had been introduced, say in the Stam season when we were winning every week, it might have done a lot better. So, because you can only get behind the team so much when they're losing every week. But yeah, no, I think obviously the beer helped at the weekend, but it certainly showed that it did have potential. I was sat in the Eamon Dolan stand, so directly opposite it, and first and foremost, I think visually it looked great. I think obviously they had the banner, and I think if it does stay there for next season, then they've got plans to maybe bring in a few more banners and flags and whatnot. And I think visually it could be fantastic for the club. And yeah, the noise it generated, obviously the late goals helped as well. But yeah, I think Saturday showed that yes, there are incentives for people to go in there, but it showed that when there are that many people in there, it has a lot of potential to make a real difference.
Yeah, I mean, things like introductory offers are things for a reason, we can't say like...
It gives you a taste of things, so hopefully you then go back when there's not those offers on show, and you hopefully go back, because you enjoyed it the first time.
Yeah, exactly. That's called marketing, and if they want to do some marketing to get people to, associate with it and go in there, then that's certainly something that I can understand, and it's, you can't complain that it's not something that anyone else does. Marc Nevitt says... On to Leeds now. Do you agree with the philosophy that it's a free hit with games running out and points needed? I'm not so sure. I think we need to try and get a point. So should we park the bus and try and nick a goal on the break? If we try to go and play it about, we could concede a few again, which won't help the goal difference. And I suppose the prospect of us conceding a few goals and getting beat quite comfortably is something we have to consider, because we did it at Sheffield United not so long ago. Leeds will get into their sort of tactical style after the break, but not the sort of team that are used to not having the ball, if you know what I mean. They're the team with the highest possession stat in the league, 59.3%, and therefore it's going to be a really interesting game to see how we turn up, because I don't think they're gonna change their tactics. So if they're going to come and attack us, I think it is kind of a free hit, because when you're playing teams that are good and you're in a relegation battle and they come and play their game and you play your game, it opens up the game quite considerably, and we'll see how that unfolds. But in terms of it being a free hit, I must say that I think at the moment, 6-0 defeat pending, it probably just about is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we said the same before the Sheffield United game. As long as we don't get thrashed, and it won't be too bad. And we did go and get thrashed. So, yeah, I mean, I think certainly the win at the weekend takes the pressure off a little bit. I think if we'd lost at the weekend, then you'd be asking questions that we need to go and get something from this game. But I mean, I think obviously we came quite close to getting a point at their place early in the season. So it'd certainly be nice to try and halt their promotion push. But I'd definitely take a point. Yeah.
And Royals fan 9 with the last question then saying, do you agree that Meite and Barrow are better than Ronaldo and Messi? Which I think I'll hold out on that at the moment. As a partnership, I think Meite and Barrow definitely have something in them for the Ipswich goal that they created, and obviously with the late goals this time. But yeah,
One thing I would say is that how many championship goals have Messi and Ronaldo got this season? So
exactly, and at the end of the day, Ronaldo scored 2 goals at the Meite Stadium. Meite and Barrow have more than that, and Messi hasn't got any. So that's what I care about anyway. I only watch football in Meite Stadium or away with Reading. So yeah, we'll move on then, as the mailbag always tends to be a little bit small after the victories, doesn't it? And it's a good sign that the fans aren't chomping at the bit to have us criticise and whatnot, and everyone's kind of in a bit of a nice mood. So we'll see how long that nice mood is.
That's quite rare for this season, I think.
Yeah,
we should probably cherish it.
We'll see how long it lasts when we go to the Leeds game on Tuesday night, which we'll be discussing in the final part of the show.
The Tilehurst End podcast.
By Reading fans, for Reading fans.
So let's catch up on where Leeds are at, and then we'll discuss exactly how good a chance we have of beating them. They won at Bristol City on the weekend, which ended a run of only winning 1 away game in their last 6 on the road. They did restrict Bristol City to 4 shots though, and as I said, they've got quite a high possession stat. So this is going to be, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to the fact that they're going to come and play some football and actually have a go at us. I'm worried about the fact that they'll score loads of goals doing that, as they are a decent team. But as a Reading fan, I don't think that we do very well when teams come and sit back and bully us on the ball and catch us on the counter. I think we've always been quite vulnerable to that. So it should make for a good game on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's been clear is that Jose Gomez, hasn't been afraid to change his style of play against the bigger sides. I mean, we've had more possession against the likes of Villa, Derby, and Sheffield United. Who are all teams who generally like to have more possession. But whenever we've played them, we've had more possession. Obviously, we didn't win any of those games. So take from that what you will. But I think, as I say, I don't think Gomez is going to be looking to change much from his team. We've won 2 in a row. So. From that point of view, I can't see him changing it, to be honest.
No, I don't think he'll change it, and I certainly don't think fatigue will really come into it this stage of the season, because I don't really think the team's tried that hard for most of the seasons. They shouldn't be too tired. One of the interesting things for me when I was building the sort of stats and what's going on for this game is that this is going to be 4th playing 7th in terms of the form table for the last 6 games, and I honestly cannot tell you the last time that's happened for a Reading game where we've gone in as not the form team, but one of 2 form teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to make for a very interesting game. And I wonder exactly whether you think this is going to be a bit more of a goal fest, or whether you think that ultimately the defences are probably going to be on top, because I'm kind of leaning towards goal fest at the moment.
Hopefully for the crowd it will be. I mean, obviously they beat West Brom 4-0 a few weeks ago, so they definitely got goals in them. Patrick Bamford's not on very good form, and especially if Liam Morey's injured, then you've got the prospect of maybe someone like Paul McShane coming in. So Leeds might well have a field day there. But I think they're obviously up there for a reason. They're a very, very good side. They've got a lot of good players. Pablo Hernandez for me is one of the best players in the division. So I've been hoping that Leeds might be fading all season, because Bielsa teams tend to sort of drop off in the second half of the season, but so credit to them. I think they're probably putting together Leeds' best promotion push, since they've been in the Championship. So it will be a very, very difficult game. We traditionally haven't done that well against the bigger sides this season. You mentioned the 4-0 against Sheffield United, and we lost 4-1 at West Brom as well. But as I said, we came very, very close to taking a point from the Meite Road early in the season. Obviously, if Marc had scored the penalty, then it would have been a 1-1 draw. So, yeah, I think we have to, take some sort of confidence going into the game. I think obviously our home record in general, recently is quite good. I think we're unbeaten in 5 at Amsterdam since that defeat to Swansea, winning 3 and drawing 2. So it's certainly not a game that I'm looking at in fear. as much as I would have been perhaps a few months ago.
Yeah, and that brings me on to the predictions, and let's catch up with how the predictions went on the weekend then. And yourself, Ollie, have now taken a quite nice lead in terms of you predicted a win, with myself, Tom and Johnny deciding he popped up with a win, so you know it is a shoo-in. You're now on 28 points, Wim and Johnny on 27, Handbags on 26, then my win put me on to 20, Westy and Sim on 18, with Tom on 15. Where do you think this one is going to go then? Because I'm going to put my cards on the table now and say 2-2, because that goal fest sense, I do think it is going to bear fruit.
We do actually tend to draw 2-2 quite a lot this season. I was just going through our results briefly before we came on, and we've actually drawn 2-2 about 3 or 4 times. So, I said I'm not too fearful of it, but I still think we'll probably lose it. I think especially if Liam Moore is out, I think we probably won't get the chances that we did to late on as we did at the weekend. So I'm going to go for a defeat. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Leeds, I think.
Not even going to score. Well, there we go then. That's I think the good thing is, as I say, we are a game clear of the relegation zone, and even a defeat won't be the worst thing in the world. Just to update you on what the sort of relegation rivals are doing in the midweek fixtures. Bolton host Sheffield Wednesday. Ipswich are going to Bristol City, if you really care what they're doing. We can go to Blackburn, and Blackburn I think they're the worst team in the division at the moment in terms of form. So if I was a Wigan fan, that's certainly the game.
I think we beat them. Obviously, I think Rotherham beat them as well. So I think if Wigan can't go and get a win against them, then they might well be in trouble. So
yeah, when Rotherham go to QPR. So again, some interesting games. And Millwall going to Birmingham, who are in a bit of trouble as well in terms of form. So the teams around us, they probably got as good a fixtures as they could have hoped for, and we've probably got as bad as a fixture we could have hoped for. So we'll see how it goes. And that draws to a close episode 188 of the Tilehurst End podcast. Thanks, Ollie, for popping on tonight.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll be back next week to discuss the Leeds game, and of course we go to Stoke on the weekend as well. So we'll be back next Sunday or Monday to discuss that. And thank you to everyone for listening to this episode. This Leeds game then, is it a free hit? Is it not? I think the answer will come at about 10:30 on Tuesday night, when we've either lost or won, and the importance of this game will certainly be quite clear as we come back out of the Meite Stadium. And if it is a 3-0 win, then obviously it was the most important game of the season. Let's hope that is exactly what happens, and come on, you Ars.
You smile, funny how the crumbs always